yelling at the Okay, so I think on the panel it said something about a top 10 game. Who listens to the podcast? Anybody listen to Dice Tower? Anybody follow me on social media? You know a little bit. Does anyone know what I feel about top 10s? Don't love top 10s. Tom loves the top 10s, and I'm like, I don't love the top 10s, but he makes me do the top 10s. So, we're taking a different approach. Unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity to play all the games we wanted to, and I don't think it would be fair for us to rank them. Okay? So we kind of framed it as our top, kind of like, just not even a top 5 games that we said, hey, that's really cool, we like that, we'd like to see more. It kind of stood out to us. And if anybody's here that's designed any of the games that we've talked about, my memory is very short. Yeah. So I just remember there was something I really liked about this game and I want to know more, so please feel free to jump in and give us a little bit more if I've missed anything, okay? We don't want to do a disservice to your game. You work hard on these, right? And it should be respected. All right, so I don't really like going first, much like when I play games. So, who'd like to go first?
We should do some schwazi here.
No schwazi.
Do we want to start at the bottom?
Just pick a game.
So let's start off with The Werewolves of Wall Street. Who's played that game here?
Oh.
Saucy. Werewolves of Wall Street it's a game by Peter Hayward.
Yeah, Peter Hayward from Jelly Bean Games.
Jelly Bean Games. And we were by the table and he's like, I have werewolf with bidding. And so immediately I dropped my papers and went over to the desk and we played. And it was a really fresh take on werewolf. So if you're not a social deduction player, this might actually change your mind. It involves secret roles.
Yeah.
So you're either a wolf, an investor, or you're, what was the other character? What was the?
Nope, there's
a
just
sheep.
two.
No, there was the wolves and the sheeps.
Just
two.
There was two. Okay, there was just two.
And it goes through a process of bidding on who you think may or may not be wolves. Also doing some kind of auditing system so that they lose money at the end of the game. Person with the most money at the end of the game wins.
Yep.
Of course, if the wolves win, the wolves pool their money together and win together.
Yeah.
So
it's a game where the wolves have perfect information, because like in other social deduction games, they close their eyes, they open their eyes, they know who the other wolf is. So when you're trying to bid on who you think is what role, they know exactly who's who. And it's almost bluffing in a way, because how they bid is going to determine some sort of information that other people are going to work off of. So just kind of playing off of that, it's really interesting. The fact that it's like almost a team versus 4 or 5 other individuals and trying to have the most amount of money in a very vicious financial setting.
Very cunning,
Yeah.
It's do you have any comments?
I played it, so I don't generally kind of gravitate towards social deduction games. I'm more your like heavy Euro worker placement type of person. So if I play a social deduction game, and this is horrible, I kind of go, oh gosh, here we go. It has to really, no, I'm being honest, it really has to grab me to say, okay, like this is good. So while this is probably not a game that I would play with my group, it would just probably never hit the table, I can appreciate the fact that people like you, I knew as soon as we saw it, like, oh yeah, they're gonna be totally into it. And I like the fact that it had that werewolf vibe, but it had something different, like with the whole auction, and it had the audit. You know, it just made it a bit different and interesting.
Right.
So I can appreciate that part of it.
Right. And one thing I like about it, compared to other social deduction games, is that sometimes when you're found out and you're just obviously the wolf, like it feels like there's no reason to really continue playing on the game, because you've been found out, and the game kind of just drags and you just have to finish it. But in this game, like even if people suspect you're a wolf, doesn't mean anything. Like everyone is just going to be. It just comes down to money and how you bid. So
how you move it around, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it doesn't like mean that because you're feeling like you're obviously a wolf.
Yeah, like I had accused you and Mandy together.
Yeah.
You did.
I changed it because somehow I was convinced by the way they were bidding that I was wrong, and I was right to begin with. But the one thing that wow, sorry, well it was true. It was true. Anyway, the one thing that actually was a big seller for me is that it plays well at 5.
Yeah.
That's right, we played 5.
Right, and werewolf typically doesn't. It's okay. There's ways of moderating that, but and there's no moderator. There's no player elimination.
Right.
So and the artwork which we saw was really
It was fun.
Really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
So,
All right. So that was
mine, number 1.
okay. What was the name?
Yeah.
Werewolves of Wall Street.
Werewolves of Wall Street.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Carol, why don't you give us one of your lists?
Okay, sure. So one of the ones that immediately jumped up to me was Smuggler's Cove, which is actually Arissa's game, who's here. So I know Arissa. I actually met Arissa, the designer of Smuggler's Cove, at Fan Expo, and I actually referred her to ProtoTO so that she could bring her prototype here. And accessibility is one thing that she was really keen on. And this game is basically a combination of Nyctophobia meets Sheriff of Nottingham, where you have the bluffing, the trading, but you're blindfolded, so the items that you're trading is based on the tactile feel of the different items you have. There's also a rock, paper, scissors combat element, is that correct? Yeah, but the fact that it's a game that plays with your senses is just a great concept that I think Nyctophobia just rocketed through, and I think we could really use more games that are really innovative like that, especially ones that should be accessible in the industry, because board games is a tactile hobby, but accessibility isn't something that we always evaluate sometimes when we're designing games and considering. So I really appreciated that and just loved how beautiful it was. And she 3D printed all her pieces too and painted them, it looks like. So it just looked phenomenal from the way it looked, and I think it has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
Who in here are designers? Is everybody designers? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's good to know who we're speaking with. So when you're designing a game, sorry, I'm a teacher, so I'm going to ask you questions. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Is accessibility, that's something at the top of your list? Is it something you think of and you go, oh yeah, maybe I should think more of that? Like I know some people purposely put their game in that direction, say I really want to make sure that that's the highlight of the game. And this is an honest question, is it something that's on your checklist?
Raise your hand.
Yeah, okay.
That's fair.
Okay.
you
And it's
don't
not
have
to, if you didn't or it wasn't on your forefront, it's something that this is something I talk a lot about on the podcast. We talk about it in social media. My co-host Suzanne Sheldon, she's very big on this as well. So it's always nice to gauge where designers are with that. So thank you for answering, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Did you have that one on your list too?
I had a lot of my list. No, the designer was very passionate about the creation of the pieces.
Right.
The first thing that was mentioned was that they had friends that were blind and wanted to play games with them, right? And that was actually very, very nice to, you're like, oh, so what's the problem here? Well, there's not many games in our industry at all. So, and from an accessibility point, from a design point, if you're passionate about that kind of stuff, it really shows, right?
Absolutely.
And it makes it fun. Like it's a really,
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's like Sheriff of Nottingham is a really cool game, and that really just took it to a different level
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
that I've never seen. So
Yeah.
Very well done. Sorry, I hope we didn't put you on that spot. But, I mean, it's a good thing.
It's okay, I'll take it.
Okay.
yeah.
All right, I guess I should read something off of my list.
Yes.
I feel like I'm waiting for Eric to go, number. Don't tell him that's a really bad impression.
On camera.
Oh. Sorry about that. Okay, so one we played recently, and this is why I had to put it out first because I remember, is Basilius?
Oh.
Fossilis.
Fossilis?
It's not a pasta, it's a fossil.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I-
there was a lot of
Fazuli.
eyes there. Okay. So,
I was doing it before we started.
I
was
know,
saying
and
this
that's
too.
why he's got
You're
it
like,
in
stop
my
saying the
mind
word.
now. Thank you for that, by the
I'm
way.
sorry.
The teacher mispronounces
Yeah, I
the
know.
game.
My fault.
Thank you. So in this game, you're playing paleontologist?
Not archaeologist.
Not archaeologist.
And not dentist.
We need to be clear here.
Yeah.
And you're trying to, I guess, like excavate the bones. And the board is really cool. It has like little divots, but it's covered by tiles. So you can take actions to kind of push the tiles out of the way. And then you need, what are the cubes that you use to...
You're using, not pavement.
Lena, help me out.
Cubes.
Cubes. Okay.
Yeah.
Cubes.
Oh, I have the notes here, hold on.
But you need them in order to kind of dig out certain types of bones, and I think there's like
It's plaster.
So there's like rib cages, and
'Cause you're casting the
I'm gonna
fossil.
call it a raptor claw. I don't care, because every time I pick something out, what would you sing?
Like chicken bones.
No, you would sing a song while I was doing the dig.
Oh, I can't sing on
Do
camera.
it.
Oh. Copyright, no, the YouTube will strike us.
No. I do it on the podcast all the time. So anyway, so you're going in, you're trying to estimate these bones because you're trying to complete these cards, which require certain types of bones. But what I liked is that you didn't have to complete the whole card, right? You could complete part of it and get the points, or complete the whole card and get more points. But there's also set collection in there. So there's a lot to look at because the cards have icons on them, and if you have like, I think it's a set of 3, you get more points.
Yep.
But if you have a set of like 9 or 12 different ones,
Yeah, if you have a complete set of the 9 different
right, then you
icons,
get more
12
points. So you have to make, I liked it because it seems simple enough, but you had to make decisions. Are you going to focus on that set collection? Are you going to finish all the cards? Remember how that worked out with you?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I like that, but it was a simple enough game, but I like the fact that it had those decisions. I mean, I also love dinosaurs, so like I was gonna love it from the beginning, but that just like added on to the enjoyment. And you came back, like you were right at the back of the game, and he's like, I'm gonna lose, you guys are doing so great. And then who won the game?
You did, but
No,
I know.
no,
Somehow I won.
But because you started pulling cards, he was able to complete. But he set himself up in a way that you had bones like readily available.
Well,
to complete cards.
One of the cool things about it was, you know, typically when you collect cards in games or something and you have to complete it to get another one, this one had that the option of you can partially complete it, score a fraction of the points, and carry on, but you can still focus on set collection, and that kind of kicked in, and that's how I won. Sorry. But that's true.
Replaying the win for me.
I know, because I didn't realize that, right? I was trying to do like a 16-point card, and I'm like, oh, I already have 5 points, and I needed that card in the flop to make it happen. So it really
yeah, and it fell into a nice time slot too. I think it was about 45 minutes, give or take, which I think is where I feel a lot of games are kind of heading in that space. So it's a bit more typical for people. Oh, 45 minutes, I can do that. You know, not everyone likes to play 3, 4, 5, 8-hour games like I do. So it's right. So it's more, you know, it's a wider audience, I guess, can appreciate it.
we all do.
Well, the thing is, like with Helena's company, is that you target games that are targeted for kids, but also accessible for adults in terms of like having strategy and a lot of depth to it, but also that simplicity to it. So like, Fossilis has like the aesthetic that will just draw you to it, and as an adult, like there's so much strategy and so many different ways to score points. It's a good all-around game, and you get little tweezers too. So.
I know.
Like the components are beautiful, like they're small,
they are,
but they're. I found the T-Rex skull.
That
That was a really nice surprise.
Oh no, you found it, but I took it.
I know. I'm so sad.
And I read the cards. I always read cards for flavor text, and this actually had facts on it.
And real
dinosaur
names. Real
names. So it was great. So I thought that was really cool. And
the cool thing I liked about that is the material that you have to clear. There's 3 levels of material, and they require you to use a certain amount of action points. You have 4 action points, and you're clearing clay and stone, and the abstract element of it, before the theme, was what interested me the most. When I first saw it, I was like, what's that? And that you can push people off the board, and that's all. I mean, it was kind of cool.
That's true, actually.
What kind of paleontologist does that?
you can push them off the board, and you can also push them in the
holes.
The holes.
Yeah. And then
And
cover
you know
it.
What's really exciting is because it randomizes the setup, but it's exciting when Mandy finds all these holes with nothing in them.
Yeah, that was bad. I literally had 3 back-to-back turns. I got everyone's finding stuff, so excited,
She got
and
empty holes.
back-to-back 3 turns of nothing in.
great.
Why are you enjoying
I'm not.
that?
I'm not. Listen, but we laughed. We laughed.
We did. It was fun, and that's the important thing, right?
Yeah.
So, Fossilis. Okay, Fossilis. I'm making sure. You're giving me the eye.
No, but the people that we played with too, they had so much. They had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
They really did. Yeah.
They did. Okay.
They did.
Give us your next
There you
game.
go. Do you want me?
Yeah.
Do your favorite
zone.
So my second game. Sorry.
Oh, that's quite the introduction.
Oh, I know you're gonna.
I know. I think you're tying me on this.
I have it.
Yuval is in the room, is he?
And the back.
Hello. Yes.
Oh.
So Escape the Mummy, or as I like to call it, Mummy Escape.
It has 2 names.
Two
For some
names?
reason we weren't sure.
Okay. Is
What's
a-
the correct name?
Mummy Escape.
Mummy
Escape.
Escape.
There we go. Thank you.
It changed. Is a really cool game. I happen to like a lot of games actually, but I love dexterity games. I like building games, and this game is designed with children in mind. Actually, it was designed with his kids, and it's a trail of cards that we all start on, and it's real time. So everybody goes ahead, and they start completing the cards along the trail. You can go as far ahead as you want, but if you finish and you don't have enough tokens, you don't win. So as you're going along these cards, they have different diagrams, and you're building this tower out of different size blocks, and it's on an honor system so that you can, you don't have to stop the game and you can be like, look guys, I did it. But you finish the tower, you collect the card, and you collect the token on it. And by the time everybody finishes, you count the tokens, the winner gets penalized. But the winner is the person that also gets 3 penalty cards. So you're gonna keep on playing multiple rounds until somebody achieves that. And the penalties are handicaps. So for example, you get gloves, or handcuffs, or like finger traps, or blindfold, whatever, there's so many. And I just, like, for me, I loved it immediately. So that's one of mine. Caryl?
Oh.
Take it away.
Did you want to add anything to that at all?
Great, thank you.
It was just really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next one I'm going to talk about is Kowloon, which is an abstract game based on the Kowloon buildings in Hong Kong. So I was trying to find the designer's name here so I could do justice.
Hold on.
Yes, if you can look for that, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Thank you. So basically, Kowloon drew my eye also because of the aesthetics. They're little building pieces, and it reminded me a lot of Jordan Draper games. So Jordan
Are you all
Draper.
familiar with Jordan Draper games at all?
Anybody raise your hand?
No?
Oh.
It's kind of, are you familiar? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Jordan Draper does a lot of games that reflect his life and the culture in Japan. So he's done a lot of different aspects where he'll have like a laundromat or the vending machine. He didn't do
the vending. No, he didn't
Oh,
do
it's not him
that.
that
No,
published that. Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
he didn't do that one.
Oops. He didn't publish it, but okay.
But yeah, that one was cute. The little vending machine one. Yeah, it was cute.
But I like games that show a different aspect of like different cultures, like especially ones that we're not really quite familiar with. Like, you know, we see so many games that are about Japan or China, but like this one's about like a very modern thing happening in Hong Kong. And the idea is that you are placing different levels of your buildings, and you have and you score points for the sides of your buildings that are facing the sun, because it's so condensed in Kowloon that you have buildings that are blocking the windows from other buildings. So you're trying to almost like block other players. Yes, by Daniel Goetz.
Yes.
I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. But so it kind of reminded me a little bit of favelas as well, where it had a certain like cultural aspect to it, but also the way the game plays reflects the thing itself, right? Yeah, I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it.
I
But
didn't
No.
actually,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sounds really interesting though.
Yeah, well, it's an abstract game, and
Which I love.
yeah, it really drew me to it.
Did anyone
Yeah.
here play this one or is familiar?
Yeah,
No?
he's the designer who had the book open on his table. I don't know if you saw that, but like I had an actual photo of like Kowloon, and it's really interesting.
I just want to correct
Yeah.
Draper game. It was Tokyo Metro.
Yes, there's Tokyo.
Tokyo Metro, yeah.
Not Tokyo.
May I ask a question? How many of you have had an opportunity to try other people's games today or this weekend?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
No, that's impressive.
That's great.
Because a lot of the time people are very focused on their own game, and rightly so.
Yeah.
And I think it's nice to see others. Okay, that's very good.
Yeah.
Oh, back to me
Mhm.
already. All right. So the next one I have on my list, let's go here. Flipping Gravity.
Oh yeah.
Did anyone try this one?
Yes.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay, you're gonna help me out because I remember the like sketches and basic. I didn't get a chance to play it, but it looked really interesting, and I happened to know the designer from a previous game who's played Nyctophobia. Anybody here? Okay, so it's the same designer. So I was really curious to see.
Who's heard of it, actually?
I did. I just asked.
Catherine
Oh,
Stifel.
that was just those. Oh,
Yes,
sorry. Oh,
yeah, that is correct. Okay, so let me see if I can find my little description here, so I can read it properly and not get all the incorrect things. Here we go. Okay, so they have it listed here. Yes, I'm going to read this. A clear card space game where players navigate a space junkyard using their special gravity boots to collect scrap to sell off for the most money. So I can only imagine what you're thinking in this game. But it was kind of neat. She had these kind of clear, I don't know what they were, cards.
They were clear cards.
Yeah, and then you would kind of place them. She had them placed on the edge of the game board. and then they have symbols on them.
Yeah.
And basically what you're trying to do is place, I think it's placing the symbol, but you're trying to collect the cubes off of these symbols.
That's correct.
And then the boots effect comes into place where you have a meeple, and I guess movement's based on where it's facing.
Yeah, where the boots are.
Where the boots
Yeah.
are facing. So if your little
Gravity
meeple's
wise.
facing down, then you're going to travel in that direction. But if you're turning it up, you're going to travel in that direction. But there are certain spaces with the cards where you can actually fall right through. So it kind of interrupts your movement. So I thought that was it was interesting.
Yeah.
So like I said, I didn't have a chance to play it, and I would have liked to see where it was going to go. So that was one, it was on my list because I was like, okay, it's different. And then do you remember what the end condition was on it?
I don't, but it was a set collection.
Set collection, right?
So
with
you're
those
collecting
symbols.
different colors of cubes. So you play,
Right.
you play your card. When you play a card with a matching symbol that's already played, for every symbol that's on the board, you place cubes.
Right. So you
And
could be
then-
setting it up for somebody else potentially
Absolutely.
to get those cubes,
The
right?
cool,
So be careful.
the cool thing was it was kind of sandboxy.
Yeah, which I love.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you could just play your card pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
And then it creates a different perspective. I've never seen that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even the layout of how the board was.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it was like the paper and the cards were all around it. Like it's
Mhm.
just something that could just be completely modular and just different every time you play it.
Like I was looking at it like kind of like a dungeon crawler when I first looked from the
That's
top
what
down.
I thought when I
Yeah.
saw it.
But you're
actually.
not, because they're floating in space. So you're looking.
Yeah.
It was
so
very
that's
yeah.
right.
And then when we got it, we were like, wow, that's
It
interesting.
was interesting. Like it took me a while to kind of wrap my head around it a little bit, but I was like, okay, I'd like to see more.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So hopefully
Absolutely.
before I leave something I'd
She's
like
down
to.
like tomorrow morning.
I know, but I leave. I go back
Yeah.
home to Ottawa. Maybe another convention. I'll probably see her at another convention, hopefully. So that was Flipping Gravity.
That was also one of mine.
Is on your list as well?
Yep.
There you go.
One that I didn't get to demo, but we got to talk to the designers, and they were pretty passionate people, was a game called Pursuiters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was my, let me just find out the designer's name, and I apologize. Number 4, Mark Tismo, Russell Tangaan, and Alex Clark Mutu Sami.
Did anyone play this game?
Anybody play this game? It's a 1 versus 1 game. Yeah, and it's about 10 hours long. It's about 1 hour long.
I didn't play this.
It's a 10-hour 1 versus 1 game where you stare at and what happens is it's kind of like tag meets capture the flag on a board, where you have like a chess-like board in front of you, and you have 2 players, and then on the board there's different elevations. And so at the beginning of the game you pick a character, you draft characters, and then you draft actions. And that's what you play with for the whole game, so there's a lot of replayability. And where you're basically like capturing the flag, you're going up these different levels, and depending, some of the actions require you to be on certain levels in the game to execute them. And you're racing around, and believe it's to a certain point level that you have to complete it.
Yes.
Yes, it's
yeah,
on
it was
point
point based. Yeah.
Point based. Yeah, so it's about an hour long, and for me, the presentation was spot on. It was very attractive, like from 4 tables away. Black and white, obviously, prototype, but just very graphically appealing. They were very passionate people about it, and we were just very excited to talk about it. So.
I like that they tried something a little different. Sometimes when you hear combat games, especially like those 1v1s,
Yeah.
can be kind of niche. There was one I played not too long ago. Does anyone play the Exceed fighting system at all? Oh, I'm surprised. Usually there's 1 or 2 people that know about this, but it's really, are you familiar with like Yomi? Okay, I'm not a limb here. It's it's a very specific type of game, and it's usually a system, right? That people kind of invest in a lot of them. So it's not necessarily collectible card games, but they're systems that people like to use, and it's that combat type of games. But it's a lot of that, your deck is your life, and here's the line of cards, and it's always the same type of thing. And this one, I like the fact where he tried to create something different with the different types of levels and cards that have to be used at these types of levels, and just the look of the game, even at a prototype, made me kind of go, oh, not a game that I would normally gravitate toward, but I liked the way it looked, and I like what they were trying to do. So that's really big, something different.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was
Oh, that was my
Pursuiters.
number 4. There's some overlap. So.
Not the number, the name.
No, I'm so sorry. Pursuiters.
Not right.
We'll just edit that.
It's live. No.
Oh no. Hi, Mom.
Number 4. No, I mean number 5. Number 4.
Ish.
It's a number.
Ish.
Just you go.
It's on our list.
No, just another one that caught my eye was Crawlspace from AJ Brandon.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a chance to try this one because I think his session is actually tomorrow. But it is a one versus many hidden movement horror game.
Oh,
So it reminded me of Betrayal House on the Hill, where you don't quite know who the one is. I'm told that it could be something like Frankenstein or maybe like a vampire, so you don't really quite know their weaknesses. And hearing the designer talk, he was telling me how the way that he wanted to plan learning the game was by trying to figure out the world that you're in and figure out what you're supposed to be doing in your particular scenario. So it's a way where exploration is how you learn the game itself. Crawlspace, you're humans who can go through crawl spaces, but crawl spaces apparently have some negative effects on you. I like the idea of not knowing who it is that you're up against, and you're working together, and cooperating with each other. It's nice when you're figuring things out, like almost like a puzzle, kind of like how Mansions of Madness had like their first edition, where you don't really know what it is you're doing until you uncover all these different little pieces. So I do like that it has also a time element to it. So you kind of have a screen behind you, you have some hourglasses, and if people take too long to deliberate on their turn, then their turn just ends, and then it's a monster's turn, and then hidden movement things will happen, and a lot of bad things will happen. And combat is sort of die-based, but not really. He was apparently inspired from the combat system in Fallout, where you have like the bat system, where you can target like the head, the arms, the legs, and if you have like both arms that are injured, you can't fight, so you're just kind of like
just like that, right? Just like that.
Yeah.
Am I remembering this correctly? You do learn eventually who you're fighting, like the big guy?
Eventually.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all about
okay, that's
uncovering the hints and
Yeah.
building up to understanding what it is
What
that
it
you're
really
up
is.
against.
So it's like very mysterious, like you're finding out small
Yeah,
things, you're
and
putting
I
together.
find there's a lot of tension in that mystery, which I really like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw that too.
That's what we saw.
Yep.
Yeah. I think there were a few things I'm hard, especially on games that are like horror themed games.
Me too.
Because horror is like my
Yeah.
life. I know, I don't look like it, but I love it.
You're wearing
Actually,
black.
I know. Well, I am wearing it.
Oh yeah, there it is.
He had some really nice components though. He had some nice
He did, and I
artwork.
like the
Yeah.
direction of
The
it.
direction
So
of
it's
it
one
was
again
cool.
that it would be nice to kind of see where it goes. Again, we didn't get to play it.
But yeah, the one thing
Yeah.
was about the dice. The one thing that was for me was about the dice mitigation. There wasn't.
Yeah,
And he wanted the tension to be there so that it was a bit frustrating.
and that's what I was
Yeah.
looking for.
And I was, yeah.
Yeah.
He wanted it so that you couldn't really mitigate too much, and he wanted to add tension with that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it's for some people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, this is it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
And that was.
but it was cool.
That was Crawlspace.
Crawlspace?
Yeah.
Crawlspace? What's
Yeah.
up? All right. Sorry, I'm getting loopy. I'm
That's
tired. So I'm singing show tunes by the end of this. The next game we're going to talk about is Ghost House. Did
Yes.
anyone here
Yeah.
Project
take a
Ghost.
look
Oh,
at?
yeah, Shannon.
Who saw
Yes.
it? Who saw that?
Who saw that one? This was kind
Oh
of
my
cool.
goodness.
I like. Oh, so this was done by Shannon McDowell,
Yeah.
and it's Project Ghost House. My apologies. It's an asymmetric cooperative game. So I was like, okay, I like asymmetric. Where's this going? And I liked the fact in this game that they took on different roles.
Yeah.
So they had, what was it, like an engineer, and the engineer was I
They're
don't know,
building
like a deck
tracks.
builder,
Yeah.
and then they had.
I can't remember the
Project
character.
manager.
Thank you,
Yeah.
project manager. But they all had like a different mechanic that they
Stage.
were working with. I'm like, ooh, tell me more.
Tile placement
Yeah.
was one.
Tile placement. So I like the fact that they were, injecting a whole bunch of different things and making it work. I think it
Yeah.
ended up that you had to play it with right now with 4
Mhm.
to make it
You
work.
have
like
to have
couldn't-
all 4 roles included.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was nothing to automate it. for
Not
that.
yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, she said
Yeah.
she was working on that.
Yeah.
But I think the goal of the game was to build. I think they have written here, building a haunted house theme park ride in a real haunted house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's ghosts.
There
That
were
don't want
ghosts.
you there.
Right.
Yeah.
The
Exactly.
ghosts were really cute. They were.
We
They
were
were.
fine with
glass
the bonus, but
blown,
apparently
like,
we're talking
it's
about the
cute.
ghosts.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
just like the fact that it was an asymmetric game and you're doing different things. And I, again, one unfortunately I didn't get to play, but that really intrigued me. That is one I would like to get to the table and see how it balances out. Does it work? Does one mechanic work slightly better than the other? Or how do they harmonize together? So that is one that I would like to get to the table again. I don't know if you all
Yeah.
had a chance to play it.
No. wish.
I saw pieces of it, but I didn't get to play a full demo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm curious how it compares to something like, even though, like, play the games like Vast, Root. Yeah, she's sitting in the table. They're good!
That was
But
one
those
on my
are-
list because of the asymmetry.
But those are the types of games where you really have to know your role, and sometimes you have to know all the other people you're playing with.
Yeah.
Has anybody in here played Vast?
Root.
Yeah. Root? Okay.
Yeah.
It helps if you know the other roles, so it's a bit time consuming, and for some people it's a lot. So I'm curious to see if that sits at that level, or is it something a little bit more approachable for people?
Yeah, well, I like that it's cooperative because one of the
Yes.
things that I get a lot when it comes to teaching Fast and Root is that you're very zeroed in your character,
Mhm.
that you have to understand what other characters are doing because of that severe asymmetry. But the fact that it's cooperative, you're able to zero in your character and not really have to really wonder if someone's going to come after you or anything. Like you
Right.
have, the ghost, you have your end objective, and you're working together. You can ask someone, oh, are you able to help me out with this? And then just kind of piece that together. So the learning curve, I would assume would be much easier than a competitive
Right.
asymmetric game, which I did really appreciate.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why I was curious about it.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, it was the way it was presented when we
Mhm.
went. It was very concise. Like took 2 minutes to tell us about the game.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about that later.
Yeah, no, but for me, what attracted me was not just the fact that it was asymmetric, but when I first saw it, it was like that was one of those.
Well presented.
The sizzle
Yeah.
was very,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the concept and the theme of it was really
Yeah.
interesting too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's, I'd like to try that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
We
So
have a
that's-
theme going on here.
I know,
We're
I
still-
know. That's Project Ghost House.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, hi. Just 1 second here.
Okay.
Let me just was
okay.
yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I know, you have no
You'll
idea what we're
find
talking
out
about.
soon.
We're all like,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Andy Kim's game, Scrapyard Traders.
Is
Anybody?
Andy Kim here? No. Okay. I don't see him.
Did anybody see this game? It had a Rubik's Cube.
No?
No.
Okay.
It's a competitive resource gathering and engine building game. The heart of the game is knowing how to optimize the use of the puzzle cube. As we shouldn't have said Rubik's Cube, puzzle cube.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. To use the use of the puzzle cube as a means to acquire and trade parts in order to repair robots to gain credits and bonus powers that will help you build your engine. Ha! Engines. Robots.
Oh my goodness,
I love
really?
it. So we saw it, and it was really kind of cool. The Rubik's Cube thing I've never seen done
Oh,
before.
sorry, the what cube?
The cube, the puzzle cube.
The puzzle cube. Puzzle cube?
Yes. So on your turn, you have to take the puzzle cube, and you're always keeping the top facing the same way, and you have 1 turn. So you can look around and you flip it. Whatever you flip, you choose one of the 2 that you've currently put into view, plus another combination that's orthogonally adjacent. So, and then everybody else gets one of the other 2 things. And then you're building these robots that have different part requirements, and then when you play them, or when you complete them, they have, I think all of them had bonuses on them.
Yep.
Some of them were endgame, and some of them
Some of them
were,
were, yeah.
when you get this, you get that.
Right.
I just thought that was really, really cute. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, there were some things that we had suggested that might make it, what's the word I'm looking for?
More puzzly.
I think that was it, more puzzly.
More complex.
Right, because I felt like it was riding a very like simple line, but I
Yeah.
liked where it was going, and I said it just needs a bit more complexity there. And I know you had some really good suggestions,
Mhm.
but he was really taking them in.
Yeah, he
so,
wrote all the notes.
Right,
Yeah,
he was very
very
receptive to
good,
it.
very
But it is one that we enjoyed playing it.
Yep.
And I think it's one that I think it was geared more toward like a family.
Yeah, family weight,
Family
8 years and up.
weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you think?
I don't.
I didn't
You
try
didn't
that.
play it.
You didn't
No,
try
we
it? I
played it.
wasn't there.
I thought you were, because you were having.
No, I'm just like,
Oh.
Very good
Trying to get in
game.
on the,
Yeah, we just, and it was a 2x2 cube. I thought maybe 3x3 would be a bit more
Would be better.
challenging,
Yeah.
but we'll see how it goes. And that was Scrapyard Traders.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So my next one is going to be Deadlocked: Escape from Minos' Labyrinth. So it's a game by Daniel Rocky. I know.
Tell us more.
Tell us.
So it's a tense labyrinth game where you're trying to pick up different numbers in a labyrinth, competing with other players. And there is a minotaur. So you know
Go on.
the Greek.
Oh, I know.
The Greek myth. Yeah. Oh yes, the minotaur.
Yeah, yes.
Oh yes.
My great I don't know.
What we're trying to get at
I'm
is
like,
these
they're not.
Greek.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. One of all of that.
So
Former pet, yes.
okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So you're trying to fill in a puzzle where the player across from you has the exact code or the exact layout of the puzzle that you need to complete in front of you. So it's a little mastermind-ish, and like those block puzzles where you have to slide pieces around and try and figure out what's supposed to go where. So you're trying to collect these different numbers, and they're paired in their color, and they're always paired with a certain number. So 1s with 2s, 3s and 4, but you don't know where the orientation is. So you're trying to collect them in a labyrinth, competing with other players, and put them on your board, and you get to test them. The other player will tell you, they'll rotate it in certain ways where it tells you the state of it, whether it's exactly correct, it's in the right position, it's the right color, or maybe only the color is correct, but the number is incorrect. So it's a lot of, it has that puzzly feel to it, but without having to necessarily have someone moderate it for you, because everyone's kind of checking each other, they have their own key, and I know he's trying to work on a way to bring tension up in the game, since you could upset the Minotaur and they can attack you and your health could go down and things like that. So I'm really interested to see how he brings a higher level of player interaction more than just having people just check what your code is, and being not like, you know, Klugever versus people figuring out what the puzzle or the solution is.
What was that one?
Oh yes, that one is Deadlocked, Escape from Minos' Labyrinth.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.
We totally
Missed it.
missed that one.
I know, it's
Okay.
a gem.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
I feel like we missed a lot of things.
I know, there's so many.
There was so much, like so many good things.
Pages and pages of games.
So this is my last one because Scrapyard was also on my
Yeah.
list. Yeah, and I say my last one because we want to give some time to have a discussion
Yes.
with you. Being designers, I mean, I'm on the last end of your step with your game. So I'm the person who goes on the dice tower and says, this game was awesome, or this game was okay, or, do you know what I mean? So I'm curious there were some things that I saw, and we had some experiences, and I want to hear from you. What you were trying to convey, do you feel it was conveyed effectively for someone like me, like you, like Caryl? Okay. So the last game that I have on my list is called Care. I don't think that's the
Yes.
official
no, it is.
title.
Care.
Is it? I
Just
wasn't
Care.
100% sure. Has anyone played this one? No? Okay.
No.
So Care was designed by Grace Lee. And unfortunately it was so loud, I had a really hard time hearing this, but my mom's a nurse, my best friend's a nurse, so I was like, well, I see nursing, I'm in it, I want to see what it's about. So it's a cooperative game that I'm aware of, and it's saying you play the part of a nursing team tasked with providing total care to all of the patients in your ward. Along with your colleagues in time management, complete all your tasks before your shift ends. So it kind of had a feel of, what's that Billy Kerr?
Billy
game?
Care, yeah.
Billy.
Holding on.
Holding on,
Story
yes.
of Billy.
Yeah, so like
Kerr,
patient care and things like that. So, but this one you're doing cooperatively as a team. So I was really interested to see how it played out because she had, is anybody here in nursing or in the medical field at all?
I'm a social worker.
You're a social worker. Okay, so like, you're familiar with some of the things that happen, but I really liked the way the kind of layout of the board was because you had all the different things that actually happen in the hospital, and you get stress. There's a place where you're like, oh my goodness, too much stress, not good for
You
the
get
group.
stress cubes.
Right, stress
Yeah,
cubes,
story of
right?
my life.
Exactly. So, you know, it's really representative of what's happening. I know we had talked about potentially those games cooperative games can, you know, have a type of alpha gamer that happens sometimes. So something I thought that would be nice is having like a chief nurse or a head nurse to kind of like, okay, if you want to go in this direction and everyone's like, I want to go in this direction, no, we're going to do this. So I thought that might be something that might help with that. There was something else you had seen in the game I could have sworn that you had mentioned. No, Dimitrios.
Me, there was the time aspect, but I wasn't quite clear because it was very loud.
It was hard to hear.
But it was the objectives, like
Right.
there was 4 cards and they had objectives on them. You had to complete them by the end of the game, or by certain times of the game. You also had a clock on the board where it took a certain amount of time to do things.
Right.
There was ways of recovering stress, but
I think I would have liked to see.
I would have liked to actually run a full round after.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was really.
But it was
hard to do.
enough for me to look at it and say, okay, this is pulling
Yeah,
me back.
this is on a.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the idea is that it's an 8-hour shift as a nurse.
Okay,
Like she
that's what it
literally
was.
told me it's the
8
game of her life. So
Yeah, she's a nurse.
She is.
Yeah,
props
she's a
to her
nurse.
that she wants
Yeah.
to play a game about her life. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's
She wants to
great.
come home and crack open another 8 hours.
I don't know about that. So there you go. So that was Care. So if you haven't checked it out, it's one at least to take a look at it.
Yeah, yeah, it had a lot of detail in it, which I really
Yeah,
appreciated.
agreed.
She said it was even more technical because she had all these medical terms in it, and then she had to pull it back a little bit.
Because not everyone is going to know that.
Yeah, but I really appreciated the detail that she put in. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's it. Yeah, that's it for me.
That's all three of us,
Yay!
Yeah.
Okay, so
We looked at so many other games. We didn't get
we
to
did. Like these papers on here are games and games that we looked at.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that the other ones weren't great too. These were just ones that we either would have liked to see more of, or just like, hey, that looks kind of cool,
Yeah.
right? But now,
There was a lot of people trying to pull us as well, and be like, oh, come and talk to us. And we're like, we're gonna be right there.
then unfortunately we
We
didn't
can't.
make it.
Yeah.
But now we've kind of done all the talking.
Yeah.
I want to hear from you.
Any
Is it-
questions?
Well, you're leaving now, aren't you? Bye, fellow teacher. Okay, so I like discussion. It's really good, and it helps me learn about your process and what you do. And if you're not comfortable answering, please. It's not to put you on the spot. How do you feel when you were presenting your game to people? How did it go for you? Do you think, yeah, I nailed it, people understood 100% what I was trying to convey? What are your thoughts?
Anybody?
Anybody. Give me even one thing, like, yeah, I thought it was great. Yeah.
I was really nervous because I don't really conceive of myself as a designer, even though I really just made a game. I feel very invested in it as my social worker and stuff. So like just to kind of get that positive feedback from people seeing my pieces and like being like, yeah, that's really cool that you have a game you can play blindfolded. Like it's great that accessibility is so cool. So like I guess for me it was very affirming. It was affirming to be able to show my game off and receive that feedback from people who were just like, yeah, that sounds really cool. I want to come check it out.
Right.
So really stoked about it and feeling very energized.
Well, that's really great, to be honest. It is nerve-wracking. You know what I mean? I know sometimes I go to tables and people, they know who I work for or what I do, and it's like, don't be nervous, you know what I mean? Like, you did this.
You're a gamer.
Yeah, exactly, just like you. How many people can summarize their game?
In like 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Seriously, okay?
That is true. You are true. Hello.
Maybe, I don't know.
2 minutes?
Never really timed it. So.
No.
Okay. No, and this isn't, and you know what, this is important. So I'm very open about this. I have ADHD. Within 30 seconds, if you haven't captured me, I'm like, hi, squirrel. So, you know what I mean? So sometimes you really have to get that, and not even just for me, in general, people lose interest very quickly.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes I go and people are very passionate to tell me about their games, but at the end of the discussion, I felt like I didn't even know what the game was about. I felt like, okay, it was really great, I know you're passionate about it, and I get that, but I don't know how to play it, I don't know what it's about, what's the objective, how many players, what's the time, these are things we want to see. Cell sheets, how many people had cell sheets?
Raise your hand, sorry.
Well, I
that's a
had
great
one for
number.
one, but not for the
Okay,
other.
sheets, yeah.
so you had cell sheets?
Did people take a lot of them? No.
Really? Interesting,
They took
first thing I
business
look
cards
for.
instead.
Business cards.
Yeah.
Oh.
I
Okay,
guess it depends on
who's doing it, and did,
I had a link to the cell sheets
got it.
on the business card,
Okay.
just in case.
Also depends on the where it's at in the
Sure.
process. Like
Yeah.
none of my games were at that point I was gonna pitch, so yeah, I just
Yeah.
had my rules.
That's fair, yeah.
And also, I have to admit, if it was good, I mean, if I was going to create something for, if I know when they were going to be cell sheets to be given, intended for the play testers, they would have been designed differently
Sure. Yeah.
than
Sure.
one intended for a publisher.
Okay.
Yeah. You might want to look at your audiences or your intended audience for the stage of your game or the product that you're selling.
Well, no, but I mean, the point is, I'm not sure it's worth the effort either for a,
it depends. Yeah, that's true. That sometimes it's
like, I mean, you're looking for, probably for a game, you're probably gonna get, maybe if it's a 4-player game, you'll get your 4 play testers, maybe you'll get 2 groups of them, so you're maybe getting 8 people out of 200 and that to test the game, and that's really, to be honest, at this stage, for most people, that's all you're interested in, is getting people to play the game.
Right.
If they like it, then yeah, maybe there'll be a future contact for you.
Okay.
And it also depends too more on if you're now maybe if you're going to kickstart it, then you're going to be more interested in building that relationship. But if you're looking at pitching it to a publisher, then that's less.
Right.
So how do you deal with people like me?
Oh.
I'm not a publisher, that's why
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I'm not a publisher, I'm not a designer, I'm a reviewer, so I'm the last person. But at that point, it's too late. So how do you deal with people like me? I'm really hard actually on when I come to a booth because I want people looking for specific things.
I don't know. I haven't
Okay.
actually I'd answer your questions.
Okay.
I mean
that's important.
That's what but I mean though the point is that it'd probably depend again if I'm presenting a finished game for review, that's a different conversation than trying to attract people to test the game.
Okay. And that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Like maybe not necessarily sell sheets, but overview cards and
Sure.
just reference cards.
Something,
like,
maybe.
Yeah.
Something, yeah, because some
Yeah.
people need a takeaway. I'm the type of person, sometimes I'm like, okay, thank you. Take a look at it and come back.
Okay, see to me that's the sort of thing you shove in your pocket and forget about 10
Right.
minutes later.
And I guess what I'm trying to say is perspective, right? Is
Yeah.
different for me than it's going to be for you and for
Yeah.
someone else, but you have to consider that,
Yeah.
right?
Can I ask, how many of you knew to make a sell sheet? Or
Okay. So it was something that you were
some
not-
people didn't even know, like, maybe, or how many people are new to developing games in here?
Okay, so this
Yes.
is a new
It's a
experience,
new
which
experience,
makes a
yeah.
difference. And sorry, you had
You've all.
at the back.
Yeah, so I was gonna sort of echo what Pam said earlier, it depends on what stage of the game, right? So
Absolutely.
I have 3 games here, but really only one is at the point where I even consider showing it to
Mhm.
a publisher or something like that.
Right.
Okay.
So that's the one that I had sell sheets for, but I only brought 10 and maybe 5 of those were picked up by a couple of the publishers and a couple of the media people, right? And it's not for just the play tester. I wouldn't be, like, that's just for me a waste of paper to
Sure.
have.
Yeah, if the
printouts
game's
for the
super in
play
flux, then it's kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what, sorry, but what might be helpful, is even if you're introducing it as a concept, it's
Right.
not sellable, you wanna have something that somebody can read if they have no time to talk to you.
Totally.
Because I went by a few tables where I
Yeah.
couldn't talk to them, there were so many people lined up.
And that was one thing that I recommended to designers. It was sent out to all designers,
Oh.
but that they recommended to have a copy of the game overview,
Sure.
so that people
At any
just
stage.
walking by, so anyone walking by could look at it. I will say that I did not do that even for my own games.
I remember seeing
Because
things about
I just
selfies.
ran out of time,
Sure.
you know, because
Yeah.
it's just you're trying to. But I totally think that's a great thing, even if it's just it's a rough idea of like this is what's happening at this
Right.
moment. It's not a sell sheet necessarily,
Sure,
but
even
just
just
like
some kind
one
of disclaimer,
pager.
exactly.
And I think that's something that we should just be more explicit about next year, because it also gets you thinking about trying to just summarize where I'm
Right.
at with this
Yeah.
game at the moment, not necessarily finalized, but
Right.
here's where we're at.
Like if I'm taking it to social media,
Right.
which
Mhm.
I do, right? And I have a decent enough following, what am I supposed to tell them?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I literally, even some of these, I had nothing. So I'm
Right.
relying on a very
Note
poor
taking.
memory.
Very
to-
fast note taking.
Right,
Yes.
and I think that's not fair to you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Especially if I'm putting it there, what's it about? I don't really remember.
You can also think about it as a tool for people that are not good at presenting immediately, to just create, like if you can't pitch it in a minute or 2 minutes, write it down.
Yeah.
Take the time, maybe like
Absolutely.
create pretty pictures for it. Like, it's a marketing tool for you, right? It's not just to sell a final product, it's to get people to be interested in what you're doing. Like it's like a business card, but a little bit bigger.
I do like, I don't like wasting paper. I'll
That's
be honest,
fair,
as
no.
somebody had said they wrote it on a business card, is it,
Yeah.
I like that.
You can direct it to a
because you can
website that
direct
has
to
a PDF
website.
cell
And that's
sheet,
it.
right?
And
There's a lot of-
that sort of thing is great, especially if I'm traveling. So when I go to
Yeah.
conventions, I literally have. You've been with me to a convention. I can stop to chat and whatever. So sometimes I'm at a
Yes.
booth for like a minute or two. So that's literally how much time you have to capture me to tell me about this game. Otherwise, okay, forgotten about it. So if you can do something like that, I think that's great. The card leads me to a website. I'm on the computer all the time, so it's really.
You
easy
need a
for me
number
to do.
system at conventions, people that take a
I
number
know.
and talk to you
I'll
later.
just wear wigs, you know, won't recognize me.
That's great.
But I love talking to people. It's great.
Oh,
Oh, go
no, I
ahead.
thought.
Did somebody have a
we talked-
hand up?
No, we talked to you, Paul, that was good.
Oh, we talked.
Yeah,
Okay,
that was
want to
good.
make sure we're not missing anybody
Absolutely,
here.
yeah.
So, I did actually have a question, but go ahead. Did you have another one?
Carol? No, I don't have to, no.
How many people here felt that their game either pushed the envelope, was different? I saw a lot of very similar, lines of game.
Yeah.
So, did you feel that your game was different enough to be like, that's something I haven't seen before, that's something different? How many felt that they were in that? Okay.
You're allowed to be proud of your game.
No, it's okay. No, I want you to be honest.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's hard work. Like, I mean, I don't design games for a reason. I mean, it's tough. I review them, but I don't design them. It's tough. It's hard work. All right. Why do you mind if I ask? Why did you find
So for me, for the game that I brought here, it was
Yeah.
more the mechanic. I felt I've never really seen it before.
Mhm.
So, but I had to build around the mechanic in the
Okay.
end. So the theme became very generic. I'll say
Right.
it was this. You'd see like a dungeon crawl. You mentioned it before. You see them all the time, but
Right.
it was the mechanic that I was going for. And that's where I built around. So that's where now, okay, this works, this doesn't. Now I can try to theme it in a way that's more unique to fit what I'm trying to push.
Right.
And it was more of I need something that works to put it to the table, and now I can refine it in a way to capture more of that uniqueness.
Okay. So knowing that, are you going to kind of go back and?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. To try
Okay.
and spin. And that's kind of where I took some of the feedback was, what did they find interesting within the game, or what did they like about it, and was
Right.
it that feeling or that mechanic that I was really trying to push the envelope on a bit?
Mhm.
How can I make that then even more enticing?
Okay. And it's good to hear that you're thinking about it, right? And you're aware. It's when people are not aware that I have concerns. You know what I mean? Like I saw social deduction a lot. Social deduction and
Yes.
dexterity. And for someone like me, those are not two types of games that I gravitate. They do. That is their thing. So for me now, I'm looking for something, okay, tell me why I'm gonna like this game over Werewolf or something else.
We love that stuff, but when it came to facing those games, it was, hard to see some of them.
It's challenging.
It's challenging.
Yeah, but like this discussion came up with Pam. We had like our
Mhm.
own side discussion about how hard it is to play test a game that is very big and ambitious.
Sure.
Like, for games that are quick, that
Yeah.
can play in like 30, 40, like under an hour, like social deduction, dexterity games are perfect for that because you can get a lot of play
Yeah.
testing, a lot of feedback for that. But if you go too big,
Like
Mhm.
economic
that's-
Euro.
that's
heavy
your
Euro.
entire playtest session,
Yeah.
That's
and
true.
you only have feedback from 4 people as opposed to 16 or 20 for
Right.
a game that plays in a quarter of that time. So like that's something to also be conscious of. Like some people might design differently where they want to like go big, they want that long, heavy game, but in a setting like this, it's hard to gain a lot of valuable feedback if you're just limited to the one group in the one slot. So that's another thing to like be considered of. Like I didn't mind seeing a lot of games that were shorter. I actually appreciate that because I got to see a lot more games.
Sure.
Because of that, but I saw a lot of creative things that were out there that I hadn't seen before, and I really appreciated things that we're just trying to push an envelope, even though maybe we've seen like similar ideas, like
Still pushing in a different kind of
yeah,
direction.
yeah, absolutely. Like
Like
there was
Werewolf.
a lot of creativity I saw.
Like
Yeah,
the Werewolves of Wall Street.
yeah,
Nice.
Took it and kind of knocked it on the head a bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And how are you with feedback? Do you feel that you are receptive to feedback?
Mhm.
Because I know some people, it's their baby,
Mhm.
get a little defensive if you're giving them suggestions. People give you suggestions, it doesn't mean it's bad. You know what I mean? There's something of interest there that they want to see potentially improved.
Yeah.
So how do you take it and do you incorporate it? Or do you just kind of, okay, I've heard you, it's great, thanks, or how does that work? Yeah, and then we'll do it, yeah.
So I got a lot of great feedback from people that I was just kind of talking about, but then one person gave me this feedback like, why don't you just do this with cards? And I'm like, did you even understand the point? I mean, sure, it'd be cheaper, obviously.
Sure.
But it missed the point of what I was kind of doing.
Yes, it did.
So
Right.
sometimes there's good feedback, and sometimes there's
Absolutely.
just like absolutely ridiculous feedback, but you take it all in grace, you write it down, and maybe you weight it a little differently.
Okay, no, and that's fair. I mean, there's some things that's just not gonna work, right? And you can clearly see that it's missing the point. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I write down everything.
Okay.
People say whether I agree with it or not,
Sure.
because I may not agree with it in the moment,
Right.
but rereading it, like
Right.
1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I'll actually go along and go, oh yeah, okay, I see how this could work and this could work. I put circles next to the things I want to change,
Right.
X's where I'm like, yeah, maybe not. Don't cross things out. Just do that sort of thing because, it took me a while to actually be willing to accept feedback even in my day job. And then I
Right.
learned how to do that.
Right.
And in the end, it's people are saying this because they see a problem.
Right.
And if there's a problem, I need to fix it.
Absolutely.
And I can't make it better, even though these games aren't my babies.
Right.
Yeah.
I need to make them better. And so, yeah, sometimes it hurts.
Sure, of
But
course.
in the end, you go, you know what, no, that's true, that is a problem.
Right.
No, this is, or I didn't see this problem.
Right.
And anyways, every bit of feedback I think is good. Some like are just off the wall. And you
I
just,
can imagine.
you go, yes, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
good.
But I like how you take it away and you think about it.
Well,
Do you know what I mean? In
that's
the
it,
moment, you're
yeah.
like, but then you're like, oh, maybe that could be an
Well, I
idea.
mean, and it gives some time to marinate.
Absolutely.
Or then
Yeah.
it just kind of rattles around in there for a while. Oh, yeah, this works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many of you, kind of backing on that too,
Sure.
how many of you came in certain that your game was like almost done? Maybe not a lot of you here, because some of you are just, and then like got feedback that changed your mind completely.
Not
And-
today.
Oh!
Not today, but on a not like a previous
session?
Yeah,
Previous
like,
session, okay.
last year I think
Yeah.
it was. So I came with a game that okay, I think it's ready. And then suddenly someone says something or it played out a way where I realized, oh man,
And you never saw that.
that didn't work.
Right.
That doesn't work. I can
Yeah.
take this back now and look at it because I knew it's, you think in your head, oh, it's finished clearly, but then all it takes is for one play to go almost wrong, and that's where you almost want it to go wrong. So
Right.
you
Yeah.
find the problems you didn't see the.
Did you change a theme or a mechanic in the game?
It was a mechanic that wasn't
Ah.
working, and I
Oh,
thought,
okay.
this is for
That's a
sure.
big deal. Yeah.
Like it's a space exploration game, and there was a whole thing where it had a whole deck of cards that you would draw and you would do it, and then when I realized that it just didn't work
Right.
because then you had to have the cards and use the cards where a simple like reveal token solved everything.
Right.
And it was like it kept the theme and it kept the feel and it kept the excitement of the game, but it got rid of a mechanic that just didn't work.
Huh.
We ran.
But I came into it thinking it's fine, it's great, it
Right,
works.
and then that just, like,
And then
changed
it's like,
everything.
oh, yeah.
We ran a game today of Three Musketeers, and we played a couple of rounds, and that came back with like, we all had a lot of really good feedback.
Yeah.
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 There was a lot, but it was still good.
It kind of, with the designers, it kind of went back to previous iterations because, and they didn't. I don't know if they expected it, but
Yeah. But
Yeah, it was-
they were like, oh yeah, maybe we should go back to that.
yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
different.
And so you said, yeah. You want to say something?
Yeah, well, I came with a game that was pretty polished, but I got some early feedback that I decided to try, and it ended up making the game a lot better to the
Oh,
point where
fantastic.
some publishers were trying it later and were giving it
Oh,
really
wow.
good feedback to the
Hmm.
game and whatnot.
That's
And,
great.
wonderful.
But the nature of the change is such that the very principle, the title of the game will have to change because there's no more mummy.
Oh
no!
Not this game!
So, I mean,
I'm sorry.
That type of thing, it was like there from the beginning, right?
Right.
It was like one of these concepts that was in the beginning, there
That's
from the
great.
beginning of the game.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So,
so good.
but until you try it,
Yeah.
a couple people were like, well, you should try it without it, and it's like, we tried it without it, it was better.
Right.
Wow.
Wow,
So, but
okay.
it definitely took the game from like an 8 to a 9.
Oh.
That's
so
very
it's
exciting
worth
for
it.
me.
Like for you specifically.
Oh, because I'm.
Sorry, less.
Right.
What will the new title be? Do you have a new title?
I don't.
Okay. I was just
Working on
curious.
it.
I just wanted to poke and prod.
I think.
The title is what I need to work on.
Yeah, no, getting ready for this weekend, I told my wife, I said, do you mind playing this game again? And she
Right.
goes, oh yeah. And she broke it twice.
Which is a
And-
good thing.
Which is, I was really frustrated and really nervous to test it this weekend.
Right.
But no, it's, yes, I thought of something, some other playtesters were testing it and said, maybe if you tried this, which
Right.
is what I was thinking. Quickly ran over to the prototype table, grabbed a couple cards, and it was
Yeah.
actually replacing a die with a deck of cards.
Oh.
And
okay.
it worked out really, after that I went, this is the game. This
Oh, I
is,
love
it went really smoothly, so.
That's
But
fantastic.
it's, yeah, my wife tends to breaks the game.
Oh my gosh, her and I should talk because I seem to do that a lot myself. So we want to give you a bit of time. Do you have any questions?
there was one other
Oh, was there
comment.
someone else? I'm sorry, I
No,
didn't see you there.
Yeah, so on the topic of feedback,
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people saying like they really kind of resist feedback
Sure.
on their first instinct.
Mhm.
I sometimes feel like I do the opposite. Like, how do you avoid
Too much?
giving in too much to any criticism? Like, I've found sometimes a couple of people complain about a mechanic and I've just like completely ripped it out of the game afterwards and
Oh,
things
okay,
like
okay.
that.
I mean, I like this, what you said, where you kind of take it all down and kind of go
Yeah.
back.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? Versus just like getting rid of everything and then testing it out.
Mhm.
It's one of those things where you have like to really think through, is this gonna work? How is this gonna work? Like I'm that type of process where I need to kind of go through a process and it's like, okay, if there is a potential that it could, I'd be willing to try it. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know if I'm just taking it out completely. But that's just my thought process. I don't know if it's different for all of you.
In my line of work, when feedback comes back, you sort of have to listen to all of it, even if it's repetitive or you've tried it, and then be able to filter that when you go home.
Right.
Sometimes
It's
it's
the
like
takeaway.
tears before bedtime, where you're like, oh. And sometimes it's like, if you hear it enough, and that's something that's maybe true, that you have to play through that or redesign it. For me,
Sure.
redesign.
Yeah, well, like the thing with seeing the development of Fast and Root up close is that sometimes you get a lot of good feedback about something, but still, even though you hear good feedback, it may not fit right in
That's
your
true.
game.
Right.
Like I've seen a lot of factions in Root and Fast just get completely torn down and just rebuilt from the ground up multiple times. And, you know, it would be something that I really enjoyed because, you know, it's kind of like a jerky roll or something. I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. But it'd be like, but the next time I see it, it's just been completely reworked and it's just a little bit more tamer because it fit the dynamic of the game better. So even though you hear something great and something that people enjoy in a certain aspect, doesn't necessarily mean it fits in like in the game as a whole. And feedback isn't necessarily there for you to hear and change everything that you hear, but to kind of evaluate and see where certain pieces fit. I mean, as a designer, it's what kind of fits in your vision and what's going to be an experience for the player and how that will just kind of like work out as an outcome.
And that's really important.
That's a
Yeah.
good point. You're not necessarily designing for yourself, you're designing for an audience, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be happy about it, the product that you develop, but it's for everybody else, for you to watch everybody else enjoy. So sometimes, it's give and take.
Yeah. As someone who sees a lot of games when they're final, I can always tell when something was just stuck in there, or it was a last minute thing, or there's a mechanic that are just ignored. I have a specific game in mind, by the way. You know which game it is. It's a big game.
Yeah.
And there were just certain things I don't even know why it was there. It was added on, I could tell. It was just something that wasn't tested properly. That's a problem, because you want your game to have longevity. It was great in the beginning, and now people are like, oh yeah, I'm seeing those things that I didn't initially see.
Like the one, we tried one game where the designer asked us to read the rule book, because they wanted to test the rule book, the legibility, how fast we can read it and understand it. That's a big thing for me for any kind of document. So criticism when it comes to even the simplest thing, like let's say you've redeveloped iconography 16 times, and one person says to you, I'm finding it hard to read.
Are you talking about me?
No, even me, with my glasses, I'm still blind. Whether it's that or typography, whatever it is, if one person says it's hard, it's probably true.
Yeah.
And you're gonna find 1 out of 10 people will find that. So, and sometimes it's hard because you have a really nice finesse, like type style sheet, and you've spent, rule books, in my opinion, are generally atrocious for type style.
on rule books.
People don't know baseline grids to save their lives, and that is such an important thing for legibility. If like the line length of your type is critical for reading and understanding. People don't understand that, so I could go on for days. That's my job.
You just mentioned, I'm gonna tell you right now, your rule book. Oh my goodness, there have been many games that have come to me to review, and I'm like, nope, the rule book was terrible.
Absolutely.
I had a hard time, and I'm a teacher, so I'm gonna be hard on your rule book. But if I can't even get through the rules to understand the game, and I'm actually upset at this point. Do I really want to play it now? I'm upset playing it because it took me a really long time to get through a bad rule book. Take the time to get a decent rule book. I'm serious.
An editor and a designer to do it properly the first time.
I can't stress that enough.
I have bought games, I'm not going to name names, where I have opened it and tried to read the rule book, and I'm like, well, we're going to sell this. We're going to just trade it away. It's beautiful to look at, and probably plays well. There might not be tutorials online, so that also makes it very challenging.
You've stopped yourself right there.
If you get tired reading a rule book, then you have to reassess that. And not like at 9 in the morning, you shouldn't be tired. Generally.
But I mean, like that's just a certain avenue some people can take, where you do your own rule book and you hire your own editor.
Sure.
But if you pitch it to a publisher and they're able to understand the game, then they'll take care of that for you. So you don't necessarily have to have that.
Fair enough.
But just like have everything
but it still
just
needs
cleanly.
to be clear, because I know there's another company that I do a lot of work for, and sometimes they'll come to me and be like, oh Mandy, what do you think about this? Do you know what I mean? Like they're gonna publish it and fix it up.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't even, like, it's more of like, I don't understand what this mechanic is supposed to do.
Yeah.
because of the way it's written in the rulebook.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
You look at the age range, and if it's like 8 and up, and then you can't read the rule book, hey, maybe I'm not so smart. But if a lot of people agree, then there's a problem.
Right.
Yeah, but to be
Right.
fair, a lot of prototypes we saw were not rulebook
No,
based.
not just
No.
prototypes.
This is
Just
I'm
a
talking
warning.
No, in
just-
general. Okay.
Yeah. Like when it
yeah.
gets to me and the rulebook's bad, no, I'm done. I have hundreds of games that I
Yeah.
have to review.
Even writing for your own reference, like just make sure they're clear so that you can go back.
Player
to
aids. Player aids.
Oh
player
yes,
aids.
let's talk about that.
Player aids are huge.
Mhm.
If you can do them,
Mhm.
do them.
If you can,
No, seriously.
Oh,
you wouldn't
no,
believe
no,
the amount of
I'm
games
just-
I've played, and I'm just like, I'm supposed to remember like 16 actions. Not gonna happen.
Or we've played games in the last couple of days where they've said, "Oh, we just took it off the player board because we didn't think it was important."
I almost died when I heard that.
I know, and we're like, "No, please put it back."
Yeah.
You know, just because they've played it so much that they remember, and then
Mhm.
that doesn't transfer.
I'm just chuckling because oftentimes early in my development, the player aid is the only probably written
Right.
form of rules or that exists for the
And
game.
that's okay. I'm okay with that.
No, I'm
It's
just
good.
I'm
It's
just
good.
sort of very much agreeing with you. It's sort
Yeah.
of I usually do a player aid like
Good.
for like even before I put it before any play
Right.
test group.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
even just a
important.
reference card.
Yeah.
Yeah, something just really simple like that.
Yeah, work on the design, the systems so that they're clear.
You want to make it easy for people to play your game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
You don't
That's
want
really
them.
what
You
it
don't
comes
want
down
them to get upset because they just can't remember
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Because that takes the joy
It
out
takes
of
the
it.
fun out of it.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
It unsparks the joy.
Unsparks the joy.
Yeah.
So we have about 15 minutes left. Does
Questions?
anybody have any questions? I think after we've had the talk, everyone's like scared.
Don't be scared. Any
Don't be
question is
scared.
valid. Every question is
Absolutely.
valid.
So, you can,
Like-
talk their ears off.
Do you want to talk about color theory or like? I'm serious.
We're talking all the
Hello.
things. Yes.
You were criticizing rule books. Do you have any like recommended ones to look at?
Oh, that's a-
That's an excellent
That's a very good question.
Actually, and I wish his wife was, Helena was still here. He writes really good rule books.
Oh, Josh.
Josh Capel.
Yeah.
He's here.
Mm,
I'm trying to think what the one he did, Manhattan Project.
maybe.
I think he did, yes. That sounds about right.
It's one of those books I'm reading, and I'm like, oh, I hope the next thing is, it was the next thing on the page. Like, it made sense. And I get it, everybody's different, everybody reads things differently, but it made sense for that next thing to be there. Putting information in examples is the worst. People will put something that actually is supposed to happen in the game.
Like
into an
mouse
example.
type, like 5 points, and you're like, it was supposed to be part of the main rule.
Don't do books
Ooh.
that fold out. I can't stand them. The ones that.
Oh, like Munchkin.
Oh my god.
Like oh, like accordion folds and.
Make a book.
Yeah.
When you asked that question, when we were talking about bad rule books, the entire time my eyes were like, because every rule book that I'm like, I can think of all the bad ones, but it's hard
Manhattan
to find.
Project. Anything basically, if you look up Josh Capel, he writes excellent rule books. Paul Grogan does a decent job. I think he
Editing.
worked
Yes.
on editing rule
Yeah.
books. So anything, are you familiar with Paul Grogan at all? Okay.
Gaming rules.
Gaming
yeah.
Gaming Rules, he has a channel. He does a lot of playthroughs, but he cleaned up, I think.
Robinson Crusoe, I think. Did he not?
He
edit
cleaned
that?
up the new one for
The new
that
one,
one.
second
Yeah,
edition,
so
yeah.
take a look at anything that he's edited.
Yeah.
Because I play a lot of Vital Lacerda games, and I have to say, a lot of the rulebooks, I think he did the Gallerist, which is one of my favorites, and that's actually pretty well done, and they have a really nice player aid.
Pax Pamir.
Really pushing that
Very
one.
nice. Just nice.
But
Yeah.
those are some examples. I'm not saying you have to use everything out of them, but
There's a lot of
the
good
clarity
rule books
is
out
there.
there, but there's
Yeah.
a lot of bad
Yeah.
ones.
yeah.
Like-
But I think I've given you enough examples.
Yep.
You can
Don't
gauge.
hate us
Yeah.
later.
That's a great question. I like that
Yeah,
question.
like a constant criticism that we hear from Root is that it's both a really great rulebook and it's also the worst rulebook we've ever seen.
I like Root,
Like,
actually.
I know, I hear that all the time. It's very
I like that.
polarizing, which is
Huh.
very interesting because it has 2 rulebooks. One which is a learn to play guide, which
Yeah.
kind of like
I like
spells every action out, and one that tells you like the exact terminology and just goes into much more detail. And one thing that I found that people really love about the Root rulebook is that it uses consistent terminology.
Mhm.
Like if you say warrior means wooden piece versus
Yes,
token.
yeah.
Yes,
Or
that's good.
if it were like a player's other piece, it's called something else. But warriors, when it's referring to a certain action, they'll specifically say warrior. So you only, like so and so will only apply when warriors are removed, but not tokens. And
Correct.
tokens also have like that accessibility of where the shape of it is what determines whether it's a token or a building. Tokens are round, buildings are square. So just having that consistency throughout your game and your terminology will go a very long way.
Language, language.
Language.
Must, may.
Yeah, up to.
Up to.
Up
You
to.
came across that a few times.
Yeah.
Does not equal. No, there's a whole bunch of terms that you're like, does it must or may?
Yeah.
And
Is it
even
an
just-
optional or is it a must?
Yeah.
Even language in general. There's a game. Are you familiar with Apocrypha?
Oh yes, I am.
We did a playthrough on that video because the rulebook was extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Well, not even that. They decided instead of saying a portal, they came up with a fancy word for portal, or stuff like that. So then they came up with their own kind of vocabulary for this game,
Simplify it.
but then it wasn't explained. So people struggled through this rulebook.
I hear questions all through these heads, but they don't ask.
I know, it's okay. We don't put. It's not everybody likes to be on the
That's
spot,
fair.
and I get that. I was that student.
Any
so.
other questions? Hi.
Similar to rulebooks, have you seen games that have sort of like a tutorial built in?
Mm-hmm.
Where they
Fog of
show
Love.
you, like,
Fog of Love is an excellent one. Have you heard of it? Fog of Love?
I've heard that one.
Yeah.
It's great because the cards actually walk you through it, tell you what to do next, set up the
So
scenario.
instead of reading the full book, you play
can just
and
use
learn
the
as you
cards.
go.
Yeah.
It's actually quite good.
Yeah.
Root does it too. I mean, they set you up with a little bit of a.
It's a
More of a
walkthrough
scenario
card,
walkthrough,
so that you stack the deck in a certain way, so everyone has something they can do in their first
Right.
2 turns, and they kind of guide you through. So eventually, when you do your 3rd turn, it's kind of figuring out how everything just works together. So that was like an experimental thing that they did with that. I know I think there was a Stone Mayor game that did that.
Launching through chart?
No, with a walkthrough. I can't.
Was that hikes? Which one was that? No, that's not Stone Sorry, Carol.
I know there was another game other than Fog of Love that had a walkthrough.
Stonemaier
in it.
game, huh?
And I feel it was Stone Mayor or something
Okay.
like that.
I can't think
But
of it off the top of my
I
head.
can't think of
yeah,
it.
well, with Fog of Love.
But that should go to tell you.
Was it
there
side?
aren't very many that I can think of.
Yeah. I'll remember it probably
Well, it's
after
like
this
that's
panel's over, but
The opposite
Yeah.
is true too. If it looks good, it could also read bad. So like it could be
Sure.
poorly written, but it looks
Oh, yeah.
amazing. So
Yeah.
people looks.
But if you
convincing.
can take a look at Fog of Love, it's actually a very good one.
yeah.
Easy to follow.
It's something not everyone has done.
Yeah,
'cause
and I like
don't
that it's
think
cards.
it's something
It's
that
kinda neat.
not every game can implement.
No,
exactly.
and that's fair.
But it's very interesting when it is done.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. Has anyone played Fog of Love? No? Okay. At least check out and then you can get an idea of what we're talking about. It's done with cards. So you're like in the game doing it, which I like.
Oh. Anybody else
I
have
have
a
a
question?
question. So you all see so many games, and you're on top of all the newest games. And you talked about you shared your favorite prototypes from this weekend,
Yeah.
things that jumped out at you as unique. Can you share some of the things you've seen recently in published games that really jumped out at you, that you're excited about, that were new or different, innovative?
Oh my goodness.
I find
Yeah.
this year for games for me was,
Really?
yep.
I have one that comes to mind.
Oh,
Yeah, please.
medium.
I knew you were going to say
Medium.
medium. I knew it.
Nailed it.
I
One,
knew
two,
it.
three, medium.
Medium.
I knew you were gonna say that one.
Have you guys? Have any of you heard of Medium? It's
Heard
one of
of it,
those
yeah.
games.
Okay.
It's a word party game where you play it and you're like, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah,
Oh
that
my
was very,
goodness.
very popular. People are really loving that one.
Oh.
Yeah.
We got it. Carol got it at Origins, and we came back to the hotel room. She's like, we got to try this game out, and we played it just the two of us for like a half an hour on the bed.
Yeah.
I don't know. We just found it amazing.
It was just like a 2-minute teach too. Like it's one of those intuitive. It's like Codenames meets the mind almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens in the game? Just quickly.
Okay.
I'll play a card from my hand. We have a hand of 5 cards. The owl have words on them. Then Carol will play a card, and then we will look at the 2 words. It might be banana and it might be milk. Let's
Okay.
pretend.
All right.
And then we're trying to psychically link together to think of the same word or concept that's closely related as possible. So milk and banana.
Oh my gosh.
On the count of 3. When we're ready, we will.
Can we all say it?
Sure.
Yeah.
If you're ready, just raise your hand.
Banana and milk.
So don't say anything, but if you have a word in mind, just raise your hand.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
So on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Shake.
Shake.
Cereal.
Shake.
Anybody who said shake, raise your hand.
I love it.
So if we were to match,
Yeah.
we all actually just did what they call a mind meld, where you can participate in somebody
Yeah.
else's link. But if we were to match, we would have a first attempt token, which is the highest level of points, between us. It's a partnership game. So
Yeah.
then Caryl will play to her partner,
Yeah.
and we'll keep on going around until the crystal ball shatters. There'll be cards that come out that shatter it. And then I'm gonna total my points between myself and Mandi, and myself and Caryl, and those will be my points, and then Caryl will do the same, and whoever has the most points wins. But if you fail at your attempt, you'll go to a second attempt using the 2 wrong words that you just said.
Yeah,
And
which
you'll-
is where the replayability
And
is.
it's- I love
yeah.
it. It's
So
so
you're not bound by
simple.
just the cards.
Yeah.
You're not.
It's like the people that you play with that
Yeah.
bring
Yeah.
a whole new experience to it. So I said white, you said shake. I've got a new word.
White and shake?
Yes. Come
This
on.
is hilarious.
Oh.
We'll get there.
People
Okay.
have to
We'll
go.
Get there.
You got 7 minutes. Get there.
Oh.
Put your hand up if you have a word.
No,
There.
okay.
You said white.
Yes, white and shake.
White
So the
and shake.
next
Yeah.
link between white and shake.
Okay.
So
This would
I
be
got
good.
it.
3, 2, 1.
Frosty.
Vanilla.
Vanilla.
Oh!
Vanilla.
And I
You
said
Someone
Frosty.
said vanilla.
Frosty is the vanilla shake from Wendy's. I'm not sponsored.
We're normally
Oh,
better
Frosty.
than that.
We're usually like a 95% accuracy.
Oh,
I'm not kidding you. We're on it.
We're like 98.
We are.
98. Oh yeah.
Nice.
So that was a
That's
game that came out that really was just like.
It's been taking off. Like every time I turn around, it's been all over social media. People have been playing it. I know Tom's like raves about it. He loves it.
Yeah,
Loves it.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, and Tom and I never agree on it.
Yeah, but that's the thing, because like even though it was just between us, like everyone kind of participated in their own
Yeah,
way.
like, everyone
you
seemed
kind
to
of
be
have your
into it.
association,
Yes.
right? And you're not just waiting for someone to give a clue and you guys have to like
Right.
work out what it is.
Oh, the other-
Everyone's just
yeah.
kind of involved in some way, even like passively. Yeah.
Yeah. We like storytelling games, so anything that's we all 3 of us do actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I can think of a few games that were like not this year but recent. I really enjoyed Too Many Bones. Has anyone played it by Chip Theory Games? Oh my gosh, it's a dice rolling RPG. I like the cooperative aspect of it. I mean, don't get me wrong, the components on this game are just mind blowing. But I like the storytelling part. I like the actual combat part. Doing this, I like the system of how you're fighting the different baddies.
I'm checking my top played games.
Oh, okay.
There might be a new one in there. I'm
But
sorry.
I liked the system, and I found it a bit more approachable for people who are like, oh, I don't really play RPGs. It's not a full-on RPG, but you can still get that kind of story from it. And I think for me that was huge, and there's nothing kind of like that right now. You see the box, it's intimidating looking at it, but once you get it, it's like you just want to keep playing it. So that was one that really stood out to me,
Yeah.
and I think people who are
Yeah.
not really into that genre, it would really push them to trying it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I like the innovative thing about that is that it has the feel of a campaign game but plays in 3 hours.
Right.
So you have like
Or
you know the
3
beginning.
or so hours.
Yeah.
Depends on the card you choose, the last guy.
Yeah,
that
and
you
how many
take.
people you play with,
Right.
of course. But it can all be played in one session without having to necessarily have the
Right.
recurring grouping just played back to back.
Mhm.
Like you kind of have that feel of your character progression.
Right.
And just kind of have narrative elements happen to you, make choices, and react to that. Yeah.
So yeah, it's one. I mean, at least check it out. I've actually been playing a lot now that I think about it. And Ecos is another one that I've been
Ecos.
playing a lot.
Yeah. Bingo. What would you?
Bingo Civilization.
Bingo
Yeah,
Civilization.
Bingo Civilization.
Yeah, it sounds really terrible when you describe it
And
like that.
building Bingo Civilization
Yes.
game.
It
Yeah.
comes across as very simple looking. That's what I like. It's deceiving because they give you preset decks, right? When you're
Yeah.
playing this game, I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever's fine. I can, look at there's like a, what do you call it? Like a terrain. So you can have
Yeah,
like
sure.
water and clay and things like that. So you can build a terrain. You have cards that you're
Animals.
trying to animals that you're trying to get
Yeah.
onto these types of terrain and gain points. And anyway, you're trying to build your tableau cards so they work off of each other in order to build
Yeah.
this terrain. And it seems okay. Yeah, it's simple enough. It's tricky because once you get past your set decks, you can actually draft your own deck. Oh, well, I was like, I've played this game a few times, I'm gonna draft my own deck. Wow, it was bad.
Yeah.
I thought I knew, the right cards to choose together, and it really went to show me, wow, I actually need to play through all of the set decks in this game, which lends to its replayability, and then try the drafting because it was rough. But I like the fact that it seemed simple on the surface, but there was much more depth when I started playing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's an excellent game. That's a new one. I don't know if I think it's on pre-order right now.
October 25th.
Did he have a chance?
From AEG, John D. Clare.
Quite good.
Mystic
He did
Veil.
Space.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent game.
Yeah.
One that's still taking me by storm is The Mind.
Yeah.
I just.
Have you played that with Eric Lang?
No.
You have a chance.
I haven't.
Play that with Eric Lang. It's the funniest thing I've
All the
ever
way in
seen.
Singapore.
Well, he comes down back to Toronto,
Yeah.
but anyway, it's a very interesting experience.
The mind, and what's the other one? Just One.
Oh.
Just
Oh,
One is
yeah.
great,
Yeah.
and I don't like party games. That is a great
Yeah.
game.
Like, it doesn't feel like it's doing anything new, but it feels
like
new,
it.
which
Yeah.
I really like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that I can explain it in less than a minute.
If I can get a table of
Yeah.
wargamers to play that and laugh and enjoy it,
I agree. Yeah.
it's a good game.
Wargamers. You can convince a wargamer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Good game.
You can
Well, I have to
convince
say
anyone.
that the most innovative game that I've played recently is a game called Detective City of Angels.
I know.
That's a good game.
So yeah, it's a narrative-based game where you have someone who's kind of like GMing. So they have the solution and a set list of responses that when you question suspects, you can either tell the truth or you can lie and misdirect the detectives. And their goal is to try and solve a mystery.
Yeah.
Usually the mystery is who the victim is, who did it, what the weapon was, and the motive. So these are all things that aren't unfamiliar to us. I mean, like, it sounds something like Clue or something, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
it was Colonel Mustard and the, I don't know,
In the,
Yeah.
with the chandelier.
The chandelier. Why does everyone always
Oh,
like the
why did
chandelier?
you
No,
say
it's
chandelier?
Mrs. Wade with the candlestick.
It doesn't even exist.
No,
That was an
We
option?
both said
You're
I
thinking
don't
of the
think
movie.
so.
the candlestick.
Oh,
Was
you're
that
right.
13
I
Dead
do
End
actually
Drive?
like the movie.
That's a great movie.
I like how you said chandelier.
I'm sorry. Oh, I did say
Okay,
chandelier. I
that's
was thinking
weird.
candlestick in my mind.
I knew candlestick, but
Oh,
my
what?
mouth was
Okay.
saying chandelier, so I finished it. Okay.
Okay, I
But
digress.
it's,
I'm sorry.
they're not new concepts, but the way that the game runs itself, it feels new because you can question suspects. You have the potential to lie. You can try and listen in on conversations that other detectives are trying to like question their suspects.
yeah.
So it
Yep.
works in a competitive way. So it's not like Sherlock where you're completely cooperative. You're all trying to piece together the same mystery, but everyone has different pieces of the puzzle and trying to figure that out. Like, I think it's just innovative in a narrative way because the way that the story unfolds feels organic and intuitive without it impeding on the story itself. Like, you get to enjoy that and still have a system that feels very Euro-y and have your action points, and you do things that feel very straightforward but also has like that strategy element to it.
Even the lives in the game.
Yes.
They move you forward.
So if you have a chance, it's one that you should check
Yeah.
out. I enjoyed that one as well. But I think we're done for time. So before everybody runs off, where can we find all of you?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I've done this before.
Okay, yeah. So, well, I'm here local to Toronto. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram as @KeishGames. I work for Leader, so if you have any issues with any of your games, it's me responding. I'm also like probably responding to their Twitter and Instagram, so that's also me.
Yeah. And on Facebook. You're on Facebook.
And
On Facebook.
Caryl Tan. I'm on Twitter @Dimitrios Alexis, and I'm on Facebook. You can find me there.
Okay. Well, you can find me Twitter, Instagram, The Dice Tower. You can email me if you have any questions. It's Mandy with an I @dicetower.com. And I know I feel like I say that a lot, and I do on the podcast. comes in. If you don't want to find me there, I'm on To Die For Games on Facebook, and I'm usually under the moniker Board Gaming Pinup Girl on Twitter, Instagram, and I think those are the only two that I use right now. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
That
you.
was
And thank you for participating. We appreciate that. Thank you.
And thanks for checking out all the games the whole weekend.
I'm
What was
sad that
today's?
we weren't able to do more.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
It's-
mean?
yeah.
So
And you're trying to, in the cycles, you're trying
It's
to
hard.
get
Yeah.
in that window, and then everybody switches, and you're like, oh, you get
Yeah.
back here.
yeah, because I mean, like, I'm like, I have questions, and
Yeah.
tell me about this, and you know, and yeah. So next time, maybe next year we'll be able
Yeah.
to make that pan out.
Maybe
I
you guys
gotta-
will be at Origins or other conventions. There's other places to bring your prototypes to.
I will never see that.
No, I'm not saying in general, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you walk by and say hi. They'll see you.
We'll take a number.
Yeah.
It's so bad. Tom works me too hard. Tell him.
Got it on video.
Oh my God.